Every so often, you meet someone that proves yet again that one person can make a difference.
I can move into a species that I actually want to work with. 21 years later, here I am.
So do you give him...
And that even one animal can make a difference.
Like cut trees daily or what?
Yeah, here's Percy.
Is this Percy?
Yeah. Can you see there?
Hello.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you get to travel to some amazing places.
Fascinating birds. I'm not sure where it comes from, but many ornithologists, the like of Ian Sinclair, refers to them as
Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Birding Diaries. Some of you may have seen on our social media platform several months ago that we announced a slight teaser of a special program we were working on, and we hinted that we were doing something in the Eastern Cape. Since then, news has broken that Kerri Wolter and VulPro moved to Shamwari in the Eastern Cape. It in actual fact was the largest relocation of vultures ever attempted, and many of the news and documentary channels have covered the story. But we felt it's easy to cover the story of the largest vulture relocation ever attempted. We wanted to approach this from a different angle. Kerri is a phenomenal person, and the work she's done in conservation and is still doing is world-renowned. And we honestly felt to just cover the relocation wouldn't do justice to Kerri and her amazing story. So we decided to put together a story about Kerri, her life, what drives her, who she is, and how she ended up at Shamwari in the Eastern Cape. Just before we get to the actual story, we would just like to congratulate Kerri for her nomination for the Indianapolis 2025 award, widely considered as the Nobel Prize for Conservation. So just a huge congrats, Kerri. Having followed you, richly deserved, and we hope that you win. But now, over to the story.
This is the most famous vulture in southern Africa, possibly even the world. And Percy is an ambassador for a persecuted species. Sometimes it's not only people that change the lives of vultures. But vultures that can change the lives of people. Many girls grow up with a love for horses.
I've always been besotted with animals, mostly mammals and mostly horses actually. I've been riding since I was 3 years old. I had a family that I think thought I was insane. In fact, they sent me to psychologists because I didn't want to go and party and I didn't want to go to discos. I wanted to be with the animals. I didn't want to go on holiday because I wanted to be with my horses. And so there was a lot of conflict at home because I just wanted to be with my animals. So that's who I am. I kind of feel like I was put on this earth, so to speak, to do something with animals.
With Kerri and VulPro recently having relocated to Shamwari Private Game Reserve, the Birding Diaries took a trip to chat to her about her life and recent adventures.
We've arrived at Shamwari. Haven't got to the lodge yet, but what an absolutely stunning place. I mean, this habitat's incredible. We've just arrived at Longley Manor and we've been presented with homemade lemonade. That is good.
As soon as we arrived, our guide for the weekend, Jean, took us on a drive to go and meet Kerrie. And as we drove, we immediately started to get a feel for this wonderful place.
White rhino and a very young baby. Very cutely, the baby's getting all excited, wanting to charge at us, very playful. Very nice to see, despite all the ongoing catastrophe around rhinos, that there are still good rhinos around and some youngsters. So, yeah, awesome sighting.
The reserve was teeming with interesting life of all shapes and sizes.
A lovely pair of Kerrie duetting. Member of the bushshrike relative family, but more than the other bushshrikes, duet a lot. Lovely call, and there's a pair. There's actually two of them. There's the one that we're just seeing on screen now, and then there's another one further off to the right. So yeah, lovely sighting.
So do you get fond of any of them, like more than others?
I do, but I don't like bullies.
Sorry?
I do, but I don't like bullies.
Yeah, no, I get
So like that bird's traumatized.
Shame, man. They're such beautiful birds. So, I mean, quite a trip, quite a new life. Different to Johannesburg, Magaliesburg.
Yeah.
Now we're here in Shamwari. Tell me about it. How's been a big change?
I think the biggest change has been the weather, actually. You know, it's true 4 seasons in one day, but I think it hasn't only affected me, the birds. You know, I don't know if they know if it's winter or spring or summer.
Yeah, you've seen a big change in them.
Very big, you know. One would expect with a translocation of that size that breeding season would kind of happen later, you know, allow them more time to get settled in. It actually started earlier, which is insane.
Oh, okay.
So breeding started earlier. You know, our nights and our mornings are much colder than in Harties, and I think that's probably what stimulated them. But other than that, you know, the whitebacks, I think these guys here settled in far quicker than any other of the other enclosures. Being a cluster nesting species, they had a lot more room for them to choose different ledges. And so these guys, literally from the minute they arrived, they were ready to start copulating, which was incredible. Also, I think the biggest difference here is we've given them, what we couldn't do in Hearties is give them a really nice big water bath.
That's lovely.
And here we were able to give them a massive bath where you can get, 10 sitting in a bath at the same time and really enjoy their baths, and they love it.
Oh, that's amazing.
So,
So now the big question. I mean, what I really want to know is, who was Kerri before all of this?
I was a horse rider. It's an interesting question. Look, I've always been besotted with animals.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I was put on this earth, so to speak, to do something with animals.
Without a doubt.
And when I was younger, I was convinced I was to be a vet.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't able to study veterinary science, I was lost. I really was completely lost. My calling, I thought, wasn't birds. I mean, I'm not a birder. I don't know many bird species. And I was one of those kids growing up, your parents would go to Kruger National Park and you would want to see the big five.
Yeah.
And your parents would stop to do birding and you'd go, oh man, this is boring. I was one of those.
Yeah.
Until I started in vulture conservation. And even then I thought, well, cool, but it's a stepping stone. I'm not in conservation. Now this is my big break.
Yeah.
From here, I can move into a species that I actually want to work with. 21 years later,
And
here I am. And it really is, I think, a species that chose me.
A lot of people don't consider them something really worthy. I mean, explain to me how important these birds are and why is it so important that we do this?
Vultures are our indicators to the health of our environment, and we need to protect and preserve them. They're so incredibly important to keep our environment clean, and we're a continent that is rich in tourism. And if we have infectious diseases that start wiping out our big five and the more known or loved species, we're not going to get tourism that's going to come into the country to see the big five. And our vultures actually help keep those species safe from infectious diseases.
Well, they're definitely one of the most persecuted. Some of the problems are huge, insurmountable. Explain to me, what is the biggest problem you're facing with regard to them at the moment?
There's multiple issues. I don't like putting threats in order of, should I say, importance, because the knock-on effect is catastrophic. If we look at vultures in Africa, the biggest threat is poisoning, hands down. But we've got to be very careful when we talk about poisoning, because there's different aspects of poisoning. I believe the biggest threat to vultures in Africa is going to be the use of vultures for belief-based purposes. And my feeling is you've got to talk about it as a belief-based use, because that is the threat. You've got to target and you've got to address it and educate and make changes along those lines. Because they're utilizing and they're getting those species by poisoning them.
What exactly is the beliefs that they have?
Because vultures have incredible eyesight, people believe that they can see into the future. Even if you walk around with a vulture's foot around your neck as a lucky charm, you're going to be able to foresee into the future and be able to select the right lotto numbers. And that's the big issue, is, we're so desperate to survive in a poverty-stricken continent and country that
They'll do anything.
People will do anything. Currently, though, what VulPro deals with are power line collisions and electrocutions. Majority of these birds that we have in all our enclosures are from power line collisions. So majority of the time it's that. Electrocution, most times, 9 times out of 10, it's immediate death. So with electrocutions, you don't often see the magnitude of injury. You can smell the burnt feathers, but only after a few days you'll notice that the skin starts dying off. And it dies off so much that actually just the bone is exposed and there's no longer any skin. So you can't even stitch it closed. And the sad thing about that is there's no broken bones, but you cannot actually heal that wound. So you've got to amputate the wing if it's a wing. If it's a foot, you euthanize the bird. And I think this is important, just on that subject, is we often get asked, why do we not euthanize some of these birds? And the simple question is they still have an amazing quality of life. But most importantly is it gives the wild species hope through the release of their offspring. When you have critically endangered species like whitebacks do, every single individual that you can save can make a significant difference.
Now, what sort of assistance do you get from Eskom, if any? I mean, obviously power lines being such a huge factor. I mean,
the entire country is a hotspot because of the magnitude of power lines and the magnitude of unsafe power line structures that there are. So, the relationship that we have with Eskom is when we have an incident, we will report it and we have direct contact with Eskom. And then what we've now managed to do is we get monthly reports. So we're able to track and make sure that Eskom does actually investigate that injury and put in mitigation measures.
So what exactly do they do? I mean, to actually sort the issue out?
So by law, they have 3 to 4 months to mitigate a small distribution line. A distribution line is a wooden structure, basically.
Yeah.
And there are various ways of doing it, either to insulate the lines to prevent electrocutions or to put insulating sleeves on. Very rarely do they actually change the structure to a bird-friendly structure.
And then you hear these horrific stories where 150 or whatever vultures have been poisoned and things like that, and you get there, maybe there's a couple that you can save. How do you save them?
When you have a poisoned individual, you put them on a drip immediately because you want to flush out their system.
Yeah.
You can then look at if it's organophosphate type poisoning. There are antidotes if you've got there in time. And that can work very, very quickly, which is quite nice. And then, obviously, you're activating charcoal.
With absolute admiration what you do, but I mean, how do you keep your soul alive?
Spending time with them. You've made a difference for each individual. And you do have losses, 100%. And those losses are hard. And you question yourself, If you've had a rehab bird or a captive bred bird and you've released them and they've died, you question, was it you? Did you do something wrong? Should you have released that individual? But you've given them hope and you've given them a chance.
The conservation work undertaken by Shamwari makes them a perfect partner for Kerrie and VulPro.
So we're here at the Wildlife Rehab Centre at Shamwari. And this wall they've got here is a fascinating outline of the timelines leading to what Shamwari is now. I mean, they go all the way back to dinosaurs having lived in the area, early Stone Age man and some stone tools that were found here. Then obviously move on to the colonization of Africa, a lot of conflict with the local indigenous residents. And obviously, unfortunately, with early colonization of Africa, a lot of hunting took place. A lot of species went locally extinct. I mean, the quagga went completely extinct entirely. 1910, Longley Manor was set up, which is where we're staying at the moment. And you move through to some other conservation efforts that happened in the area. 1931, Addo Elephant Park was set up. 1990, the farm that is now Shamwari, the property was purchased. And then we move on to 1992. Dinosaur fossils were actually found on the Shamwari property itself. And then we move on through various conservation initiatives in this area. And then from about 2000 onwards, reintroducing some key species, leopard and serval, elephant, rhino, and ultimately leading up to 2024, this year, which was when VulPro moved here. And that's the whole reason we've come here to chat to Kerrie. But yes, if you come to Shamwari and you get a chance to visit the Wildlife Rehab Centre, have a look at this wall. It's a fascinating glimpse into the past 100-odd years of this property, even longer. So this is quite a sobering thing to be greeted with when you come into this wildlife rehab centre. And I think it's quite a powerful statement as to why we even have a rehab centre in the first place. But as you see flashing past me on these pillars here, there's some dates. And these dates are both significant and they're sad. You'll actually see species names on these plates. And these are the years that these species went either extinct or functionally extinct. And it just gives you a sense of just how much there is to do, and increasingly how much effort we have to put in to try and save the species we have left.
So do you give them like fresh, like cut trees daily or what?
Yeah, here's Percy.
Is this Percy?
Yeah. Let me see if they're...
Hello.
Yeah, so Percy is female, is this one here. So these guys, I laugh, they've built their nest from the ground.
Yeah.
It's so high that it's the same level as Percy's ledge.
So this is Percy.
That's Percy.
Oh, beautiful eyes.
So, hey, what you doing? Go back to your nest. So Percy, you can put like a camera right in front of his face and he'll be fine.
So we've now moved up into the aviary for the Cape Vulture. As you can see, they're very different. They breed on the cliffs compared to the whitebacks, which normally are on trees. You can see the elaborate buildings of the nests around us. We've got a few eggs, which is very exciting. So one of the big questions is, you know, we talk about rhinos and lions and everything being so cute and much easier to rehabilitate and get conservation for, definitely to sell. What was it for you that decided that this was what you needed to do in your life?
After being in working in conservation for 2 years, I still wasn't convinced that vulture conservation was where I wanted to stay. I was still convinced that at some stage I would go into, another species. And that was until Percy came into my life. And Percy was 10 days old when I was given the opportunity to hand raise him. And, I do call it an opportunity. In hindsight now, I probably wouldn't repeat it because I don't want them imprinted. Yeah. But I was given the opportunity of raising Percy for educational purposes. And it was at that very moment when Percy actually was in my hand, my single hand, he was so small, that I realized the fragility of the species. But I think more importantly is having a vulture in your hand, from this size to in your hand, you realize that they are completely dependent on us for their survival. And that really was the turning point for me, was being dependent and responsible for his life.
So tell us about Percy and what his personality is and what he does today.
So Percy's as short as I am, if you notice. He's short. He looks pretty fat, but let me tell you, his body condition is not too bad. But Percy is, he's an imprint. He did education for 5 years, so we went out to schools, and the idea was to change the perceptions and the mindsets of vultures. But 5 years came very quickly, and Percy, from one day to the next, decided, you know what? He's done. He's done with education, and he needed to be utilized in a more appropriate manner in a captive breeding program such as this. And he reminds me of a rugby team because he's the scrum. He will go down low at a carcass. He will fill his crop as quickly as he possibly can. You can see he's still got food in his crop. He's in and out.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to fight. He's not a fighter. He's not a bully. He just wants to go do his thing and go back to his ledge with his female. He's the most amazing dad.
Yeah.
He will take charge of raising the chick. He doesn't care if the female's there or not. He is the epitome of a doting dad in a vulture's world. He doesn't have a bad bone in his body. He is a gentle, gentle soul, and he's an old soul. And he's 16 years now. So I've had him for 16 years.
How long do they live?
Sure, out in the wild, probably about 40 odd years. In
Wow,
captivity, a
that's
lot
incredible.
longer. So Percy also taught me about the importance of recession planning.
Yeah, that's,
You
a
know?
lot of people get parrots. They live, that's like a lot longer than that, 80 years.
Absolutely.
They're doing
Almost
this
got slapped.
deliberately. So the third one they take me somewhere.
They're just highlighting their wingspan.
There's no two ways about it. So brush on the back of the neck, bat on the head, the shoulders. I'm waiting for one to land on me. Sorry.
But yeah, he really did also teach us in VulPro the importance of planning ahead. You know, so out of all the birds, Percy's the only actual individual that I own because he's a captive bred bird.
Yeah.
And he was never wild bred. I actually had a supporter that bought him for me because they didn't want me to leave him behind where I was working. So he is truly the only bird I own. The rest, I'm the custodian. And all his offspring are destined for release. I don't believe in keeping any able birds in captivity.
There's a lot of intelligence in those eyes.
He's scheming, I think.
I'm waiting for my arm to get chomped. He's absolutely beautiful. It's incredible how, you know, I've only ever seen vultures at a carcass. And I mean, obviously, that sort of diverts away from the actual bird. And you're sitting there, I mean, I think it's perception of how we are. We've got a dead animal, so we're not really focusing on the beauty of what is actually going on. And they are really, truly beautiful birds. And I'm just looking at the detail, and his eyes are incredible.
I think also while he's here close to us, what I think is very noticeable, you know, and talking about that we normally see them at a carcass, is he's exceptionally clean.
Yeah, he's amazing, Nikki.
And-
You never expect him to be
And that's it,
a
you know.
scavenger.
You know, we're brought up thinking vultures are dirty,
Yeah.
and yet after every feed, and they were fed yesterday, they bath, and they are meticulous at keeping their feathers in prime condition, which it makes sense for flight and for thermaling. You know, their feathers cannot be caked with blood and dirt and whatnot. It would affect their flight. And the other thing that often we perceive vultures to be, and that is smelly.
Yeah, and
And you're
not.
standing right next to him and he doesn't smell at all. Every species has their unique smell. You know, human beings have our own unique smell.
You can see them cleaning, yeah.
100%. And they are absolutely meticulous to being clean. And the smell, often, if we do come across a smell, you know, with the vulture, it's usually because they're threatened by us or by something else, and they actually are regurgitating that food.
Oh, okay.
And that's the smell comes from the food that they're eating, because it can take 2 days for all of this food to actually digest. And that is what we're in fact smelling. It's not the species themselves. And again, it's, as I said, I knew nothing about them, but these are things that I've learned just simply from spending hours and hours inside an enclosure, as well as out in the field, studying them, learning about them, learning their different personalities. You know, every single individual has their own unique character and personality, just like a person does.
That's incredible. I'm just looking at his little fur coat going around his going around. They're so fine. It's almost like hair.
Absolutely. And each one, so, you know, how you identify, for example, leopards and wild dogs, it's through their spots and their prints or whatnot. Vultures have the same thing. Each one has some unique differentiation. Percy here on the side, one of his secondary feathers is almost white. The other thing that he does is when he opens up his wings,
Yeah.
all white. He doesn't have a brown dot at all underneath him.
That's incredible.
All the others will have a dot here, a dot there and stuff. So each one is very, very unique
and
in
different.
their complexion.
This is all amazing, but there must be something other than this for you. I mean, what do you do? You know, do you have hobbies that you get involved with? Or is this everything?
You know what? This is my hobby. This is my life, because I absolutely love what I do. that, you know, it is very consuming. I have a toddler.
Sure.
And
I don't know how you do that animals, because these must be like toddlers.
Exactly. But you know, the other day we're putting nesting material in, and Connor's getting in there, helping us throw nesting material. This is life.
Yeah,
you know,
when it's such a wonderful way to grow up. Anyway.
When he sees an egg, he knows that there's a chick inside it.
Yeah,
you know, and he
funny.
asks, when is it going to hatch?
Yeah.
And then we fight who actually has the first feed, because he wants to feed and he tells me to get away.
Oh, that's funny.
And so he's just taken it on. You know, this is just part of his life. And so it's a privilege actually sharing this with my little one. But, you know,
well, we appreciate you sharing it with us, because I think at the end of the day, what you've done is incredible and unbelievable. I mean, to start off the way you did, and now you've got all this, and it's obviously the environment you have here. This is an incredible space to do this in, and the support that you've got. Obviously, you've earned it. It's an amazing accomplishment.
I'm very privileged, and I think, you know, for anyone to be able to love your job, and to be as passionate and to make a difference, I think is just really special, because I think we all brought up in boxes. You know, you've got to work in the corporate field, you've got to work 8 to 9, and generally you don't love what you do and you live for the weekends.
It's been absolutely wonderful to come here today to Shamwari and to share this amazing experience. I hope you guys have seen that they're not just vultures. These are amazing birds, and they really do deserve our protection.
We set off on our last drive for the day. The day finished with sundowners overlooking this gem of a reserve. And Jean's hospitality continued unabated.
So we've stopped for sundowners, looking down into the valley. I must say Shamwari's gone to town in making us feel at home, really having a good day. And yeah, we're going to go on and look for lions, but so far it's now time to stop, have a glass of wine, some biltong, and just enjoy the scenery.
I love all the little things in the bush. I try and learn as much as I can. I've always got a new book. If it's not scorpions, it's flowers, spiders.
You also have that problem.
I have. It's like your
Can't
attention
help
span. It's
yourself. You just go
ADHD. It's
into
push.
everyone and then you go check if there's a new thing on the shelf somewhere. Or
Yeah.
you find one that is maybe you thought was discontinued or something
Yeah, no, especially the older flower books, the ones that have all been.
on this area, which is crazy. I couldn't find it in any bookshops. It was out of print, and one random day we had a little guest house.
Yeah.
And there they have this Wildflowers of the Eastern Cape book that was printed
Oh,
like
God.
in the 1960s or something.
Yeah.
It was like,
I
I
had to
will
have this.
pay big money for this book. Please, can you tell me where I can find it?
Yeah.
Or if I can buy this.
No, I'm not.
And she's like, well, we don't use it.
Another glorious Shamwari morning saw us on our final game drive.
Sunday morning, we've had a delicious breakfast, awesome sunrise at the lodge, and time for some more game viewing and hopefully some birds too. Busy watching a hummerkop on the edge of this little piece of river. Fascinating birds. I'm not sure where it comes from, but many ornithologists, the like of Ian Sinclair, refers to them as a mudlark. And if you know your calls, that was a southern bobo calling in the background.
a stunning Cape rock thrush. A nice little bird party here as well. Somber green bull, bunch of wood doves calling. Yeah, but the highlight was definitely the male Cape rock thrush. Brimstone canary calling. Quite a few of them here. I must say, it's quite amusing because I had to go to Cape Town and only got brimstone canary as my 700th lifer. So it is kind of ironic that we just about have brimstone canaries falling out of trees here. But yeah, really amazing.
Throughout the weekend, Jean continued to amaze us with his knowledge of the local natural history.
All right, so this one is the matchstick mistletoe, which is growing up in the tree over there, and it's quite an ingenious design with this plant. So it's technically, as we say, mistletoe, it's a hemiparasite, so it's got green leaves and it's able to photosynthesize. All it takes from the plant is water and minerals. What's quite nice is the flowers. It's very selective, so it doesn't waste any of its pollen. So it starts off with a little green tip, and then eventually the tip darkens, and little sunbirds and things like that will be able to locate which ones are riper. They use their bill and they nip the tip off of it at the top here, and by doing so, as soon as they do it, it has this explosion that throws a puff of pollen in their face, and then it'll open up and they can stick their little tongues and the beaks inside to get to the pollen that is kept, after the nectar that is kept down in the base of the flower here. So I'll show you another one again, just so you try and get the effect. So you see that it's got a little dark tip. The moment you nip the tip off, then it starts unraveling. And there you can see all the pollen. So normally, this one is just slightly underripe, but if you nip it hard enough, then it has this proper explosion, and you get that puff of pollen in the face, and then they'll go from plant to plant. And then as they stick, as you saw, as I pushed at the bottom here, all the nectar started dripping out. That's pretty cool.
Wow, this weekend has been incredibly sobering. I first learnt of the plight of the vulture when I read Lawrence Anthony's book, The Elephant Whisperer, and realized how persecuted these birds really are. It wasn't long after that I started to follow Kerri and the amazing work that she's done. And I really believe these are the heroes we need to teach our children to follow. And these are the people that we need to put all our efforts in any way or form behind. I want to make a difference, and we at Simply Birding have decided that we are going to adopt an egg and follow it to freedom. Now, this is not something that's just been given exclusively to us. Anyone can do this. So I challenge you today, adopt an egg and follow it to freedom.
Just as we were packing up to leave Shamwari, we actually had a couple of minutes to chat to Yuri, who's the hospitality manager for Shamwari Private Game Reserve. So we're here at Longley Manor at Shamwari, and I'm chatting to Yuri, who's the hospitality manager, not only for this lodge, but for the whole of Shamwari. Yuri, I must say thanks for hosting us, and it has been an absolutely amazing experience.
Welcome, Doug. It's a pleasure having you here.
So looking at Shamwari before we came down, I see you've got a number of lodges. I mean, there's quite an array to choose from.
That's correct. So we have 6 5-star lodges, as well as an explorer camp, so a walking camp, and they spread out across the entire reserve.
I suppose the main question being a birding show, I mean, birders may come down to stay at Shamwari, and there's an array of lodges to choose from, as we said. I mean, what would you recommend as the lodge for a birder to choose if they're going to come and stay here?
Yeah, so I think obviously there's completely different ecosystems and environments around the reserve, which you would have seen. My favorite would definitely be Eagles Crag Lodge. I think that would be a winner, just because of where you're situated in the thickets. I think there'd be quite a lot of bird activity there.
So yes, we had an amazing time. We've been going around with Jean, our guide, and he said to us, you have to see Eagles Crag. He took us there, and I must say I was blown away. What an absolutely phenomenal place. the decks to sit there and bird from your deck. But I mean, Shamwari obviously is way bigger than just birding. I mean, you are a Big Five reserve, and there's an array of game viewing opportunities.
Yes, that's correct. So obviously we have the Big Five here, but also we have a really great array of plains game or general game that you can see on Game Drive. And then we do walking safaris as well in between Game Drive time.
Amazing. I mean, obviously, the main reason we're here, we had a chat to Kerri looking at the work she and VulPro are doing. But I mean, what is the relationship between VulPro and Shamwari?
So we have a very special relationship with VulPro and with Kerri. Shamwari is built on the pillar of conservation. We've been doing it for 32 years, bringing species back into the Eastern Cape that were never here before, or that were here, should I say, but over time their numbers have dwindled drastically. So we now are working very closely with her to obviously bring the Cape vultures back into the area. And we assist her in funding the different phases of the projects, as well as the operational day-to-day runnings of VulPro down in the Eastern Cape. And it's been successful so far. We've had a few releases already. There's a soft releasing process. So it's a very exciting time for both VulPro and Shamwari.
Yeah, and aside from partnering with Kerri on her conservation work, I mean, there's a number of conservation initiatives you guys are doing to not only sustain, but improve the wildlife and conservation initiatives in the area.
Yes, that's correct. So other species and the important species that we'd like to bring back here would be obviously the African wild dog or the Cape hunting dog, as well as the spotted hyena.
So all I can say again is thanks for hosting us for this weekend that we've been here. And I wish you all the best in all your future endeavors. And I must say, we've spent our time here at Longley Manor in the absolute lap of luxury. I mean, it is a phenomenal once-in-a-lifetime experience. And our guide, Jean, was talking about the birding opportunities. I mean, he mentioned things like African finfoot, Narina trogon, and the list goes on of the birds that are available to be seen on the Shamwari Reserve. And all I can say is if you ever have an opportunity, get yourself down to Shamwari. We've been blown away. Kerri's work is phenomenal, and it really is a phenomenal place to visit. I think we can all agree that that was an incredibly moving story, and the opportunity to chat to Kerri, document her story, and be hosted by Shamwari, I must say, so far has been the highlight of my journey with the Birding Diaries. So thanks again for watching. We always ask you to share, but in this particular case, I think Kerri's story needs to get out as wide as possible. Maybe even you sharing this video can help her towards possibly being the winner of that Indianapolis 2025 award. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share this video.